Story 1. I said that my children would never see me drunk. I did not know then that it would be because I got sober before they were born. Story 2. Never shopping at Sears because of a customer service issue. Never shopping at Kmart because of customer service. Funny how that worked out. Story 3. Promises. If I make one, I will do everything possible to keep it. Therefore, I never make a promise I cannot keep. Story 4. Only help someone if you have the sustained energy to do so. Want a ride to work because your car broke down? Sure. Need a ride every day because you have a job 10 miles away without a car? No. Story 5. I was an at-risk teen. Several of my friends struggled with various addictions. I quickly realized there had to be a sober person in the room at all times, and since nobody else around could be trusted, that person would have to be me. So I decided to go fully straight edge and to make myself a reliable person that people can count on. 20 years later, I still stand by those two decisions. It proved to be the right idea, and I do not see any reason to stop. Story 6. I promised never to smoke a cigarette. I have never smoked and never will. Story 7. Never smoking a single cigarette. Not even one. I worked selling them at a gas station once, and that did make me curious once I learned about all the varieties, but it is a risk that has no upside and a crippling downside. I do not even smoke joints, though I am not nearly as against that as I am cigarettes. Story 8. As a child, I visited Australia and ate vegetable marmite. I swore never to eat it again. More than 20 years later, I am still keeping that promise. Story 9. I told my girlfriend that when I say, I promise, I mean what I say. I still live by that rule. Story 10. Never having children. I told my grandmother when I was 8 and have never changed my mind. Story 11. I refuse to compromise who I am for monetary gain. I promised this to myself around 8 years old as I started to understand how society functions. It boils down to this. I refuse to step on other people's heads to get ahead, refuse to do work I find immoral or harmful to the world and society, and refuse to put my work life ahead of my personal life. My family is frustrated with me because I am not living up to my full potential, but I am not here to grind away at a soulless job to buy things to make others think I am successful. I am here to walk in the woods and observe nature. I make enough money to support myself while still having enough energy to enjoy the outdoors. It might not be good enough for everyone else, but it is how I choose to live. Story 12. When I was little, I fell on my head and had to go to the emergency room to get stitches because the metal hair clips cut into my scalp. I have never worn metal hair clips since. Story 13. You never know what someone else is going through. Costs nothing to be kind. I had many people be incredibly rude to me while I went through some difficult times as a teenager working in a service job. I swore never to be that person to someone else, and as far as I know, I never have been. Story 14. If a family member, even one I am not fond of, becomes seriously ill, I will visit as frequently as I can until the end. When I was 13, my great-grandmother fell extremely ill while in a care home. She was so ill that if a dog were in that condition, it would be put down out of mercy. She was in that state for 2 months. Each time I had an opportunity to visit, I would say, next time, so I could play Pokemon on the Game Boy. I felt ill playing in a car, and the care home was an hour away. When she died, it absolutely broke me that I had wasted those chances. I was a mess for weeks before I could cope. Growing up, I lost all my grandparents, and I spent every second I could by their side. I watched other family members, fully grown adults, make the same mistake I did in my youth, as well as friends doing the same. Even if I do not like or care for a family member, I never want to experience that guilt again. Story 15. Lying. My dad said to me one time, "No one does what they say they will do anymore. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no, and you will get ahead in life." At about age 15, that just sunk into my soul, and I have not told a single lie about anything in over 15 years. Story 16. A bit not safe for work. I have never faked an orgasm and never will. Sometime in my 20s, I decided that I was not going to compromise my own pleasure just to soothe the ego of an insecure male partner. Nobody is worth that. If I do not reach orgasm in any given sexual encounter, maybe it is okay and maybe it is not, depending on the circumstances. But I am not going to lie about it and fake it. Story 17. Watching The Princess Bride, I decided I wanted to be chivalrous, a leader, and witty. This happened at age 11, and I am now 46. Story 18. To never forget what it was like being a child when dealing with my children and any other children I come into contact with. It disturbs me greatly to see people who either do not know or have forgotten what it was like to be a child in an adult world. Story 19. A good 15 years ago, Docker ran an advertising campaign in which men without pants marched around singing, "I wear no pants," repeatedly. These ads were highly annoying, and Docker seemed to realize this because, at some point, they started running an ad that ended with the message, "Buy our pants or we will keep playing this song." I felt this went too far and emailed the company to say that because of the ads, I would never buy their pants again. I also stated that as long as the ads continued, I would encourage others to permanently avoid their brand. It is easy to do since there is nothing particularly special about their pants as far as I can see, and I have kept my pledge to never purchase their products. Story 20. My family had limited funds growing up, and unfortunately, my parents were heavy smokers, with my mother being worse. When choosing between buying cigarettes or food, bills, diapers, and other necessities, cigarettes always came first. Having only school lunch as my source of food for weeks at a time, I swore never to start smoking. Drug abuse resistance education had nothing on hunger and lack of clothing. Story 21. I would not forget what being young was like. I saw many young adults who reached a certain age and simply forgot all the things that infuriated them just a few years before. It amazed me how quickly they became like their parents, doing and saying all the same things they once hated as children. Story 22. I started smoking at 15 and promised myself and my mother that I would quit by the time I was 25 because we have heart and lung diseases in our family. I did it. Now I am in my 30s and I cannot imagine still being a smoker. Story 23. I was taught strongly by my parents to always put myself first and to push myself not to rely on anyone for anything. I am sticking to that independent mindset, and I have found a partner who is incredibly supportive of it. Story 24. I'm a rules kind of person. 1. Do not add or subtract from the census. 2. Do not make the news. 3. Do not end up in jail. Made when I was 18 and at 38, I have never broken them. Story 25. My philosophy is this. I live by it, always have, and always will. Never do anything to anyone for any reason, no matter what, where, who you are with, where you are going, or where you have been. Never for any reason. Story 26. I will never get addicted to drugs. Instead, I became an alcoholic. 73 days sober today. Story 27. I have known since I was a teenager that I did not want and would not have children. I am in my 40s now and happily childless. Story 28. When I was a child, my mother was dressing me with a cigarette in her mouth. She was blowing smoke in my face, and it was so unpleasant that I swore I would never smoke a cigarette, which I have never done. Story 29. I will never be a stereotypical old man who is stuck in his ways, close-minded, and negative about new things while complaining instead of taking action to improve. I have been to the hospital and have more medical conditions than my mother's boyfriend. I complain far less than him. I remain open to new experiences despite a lifetime of trauma. I reject the attitude of old people know everything and hope such mindsets disappear. Story 30. This might be slightly petty, but I grew up in a very business-minded family. I have a very creative and artistic brain and genuinely enjoy drawing, writing, and creating for no other reason than to create. My family and everyone always tries to persuade me to sell my work or do something with it. However, ever since I was a child, the idea of a stranger having my work, which is personal to me, makes me uncomfortable and kind of uneasy. To summarize, I refuse to sell my work just because people tell me I should or could make money. I have yet to make any money, and I am more than okay with that. Story 31. Tobacco. Watching your grandmother die of throat and lung cancer kind of turns you off it. Story 32. Apparently, When my dad was a kid, Lay's potato chips had a slogan that said, "Nobody can eat just one." Obviously, he ate one Lay's chip and has never had another. If there are chips set out in a bowl and the brand isn't obvious, he won't have any just in case they might be Lay's. He is 65. Story 33. Never be mean, by which I mean shout, argue, or throw my hands in the air, but never pick someone apart in anger by focusing on things they are sensitive about and throwing it back in their face. Never have. Never will. Story 34. I'm 58 years old and have no children that I know of. I never really had a need for them. I got divorced at 24 from my high school sweetheart. Don't get me started on marriage. I am one of 8 siblings. I have many nieces and nephews. They come to visit their fun uncle, and then I send them home to their parents. Story 35. Work hard on myself to be a socially and economically successful person. A promise I made to myself when I was 15, and today at 25 it has given me results. Story 36. Never drink alone. Not after a hard day's work, and especially not when you are feeling down. Unless someone else is there with you. This started because every adult I knew as a kid drank. Not that they were all alcoholic, just that they did drink from time to time. The one observation I made back then was that the people who had issues with drinking would drink alone. Now, I drink at parties and social gatherings, but alone I don't even consider it. I know that for some this seems normal, but until this day, except for people who do not drink alcohol at all, everyone else I know drinks alone sometimes. Story 37. My favorite number is 7. A stranger and I had a conversation that led to him asking me what my favorite number was. I said with pride 7, as if it was the only right number to say. Then he asked for my age, and I told him I was 7 years old. He gave me a big side eye, as if I was unoriginal, and asked, "Is that the reason 7 is your favorite number?" "Nope, it's not," I said, "and it will forever be." Story 38. I made a conscious choice to live my life by my morals and values when I was in my teens. I am 65 now, and it feels like the world needs me more than ever. I make a difference. I live my beliefs. I walk the walk and talk the talk. That is what living my truth looks like to me. I am humbly honored to have made a difference in the world simply by being myself. Story 39. Never drive under the influence of alcohol. I had an uncle who was killed by a drunk driver. Story 40. Swore I would never break a promise to my children. I very rarely use the word promise or say something will definitely happen. If I promise, then it happens. Story 41. I swore at 11 that I would never watch Fast and Furious, any of them. I still have not, 16 years later. Story 42. Never touching alcohol. It tore my parents apart, and I have turned that experience into a mental safety net to avoid doing something very unwise. Story 43. I would not try any items that include nicotine, such as cigarettes. Story 44. Dislike for the opera. My parents kept forcing me to go and telling me I would be grateful for that when I was older. I am 42 and still passionately dislike it. Story 45. My father was unfaithful. I promised I never would be, and I have not, despite having opportunities to do so. Story 46. I will not hit my children. I am pretty sure I was about 5 years old when I promised I would not do it. Story 47. I do not cheat on games. I did it once when I was maybe 8, and it felt so hollow. I stole money as the banker in Monopoly. Story 48. I will never actively seek out stress. Yes, there are people who want to be stressed because they think it makes them better. Story 49. Never smoking a cigarette. I have family members who have gone too far down that path. I have also seen blackened lungs and mouths. No thanks. Story 50. I will never physically harm my children. No spanking, nothing. Story 51. A few years before my oldest son was born, smartphones came out. I got the iPhone 1 and noticed how suddenly everyone seemed absorbed by their phones, kids included. I mentioned to my new husband that our future kids would not get smartphones until they were at least well into high school, whenever we felt they could handle the responsibility. I just wanted them to enjoy living in the moment. My kids are 13 and 11 now and do not have smartphones. They also do not care much and are not missing out. Several of their friends' mothers also did not buy their kids phones for the same reason. Story 52. Not judging people as soon as I meet them. I never understood the type of people that you meet and have to earn their liking. I am nice to everyone I meet until they give me a reason not to be. Once I feel that way, I just move on. I do not associate with them at all. Also, the mean girl behavior, like being upset that someone is wearing the same thing as her, and much more of that kind of attitude. I just think it is all so stupid. Story 53. That my nieces and nephews know that I am completely safe for them to tell me anything or ask for help. I will love them no matter what. Even if I did call out my nephew because he posted a positive statement about the Chiefs kicker's comments about masculinity, while not acknowledging the harmful nature of his statements about women and LGBTQ+ people. Story 54. When the light brown M&M was replaced with blue, I swore I would never eat a blue M&M. Here I am, almost 30 years later, having never eaten a blue one. Story 55. I will never text and drive or drive under the influence of alcohol or drugs. I do not drink often and have only used cannabis once, but I refuse to do so if I know I will be driving, even a little bit. I am 19 years old, and it is surprising how many people my age do not care about the risks involved. Story 56. I have never littered. Never. No one around me has ever tossed litter in my presence and gotten away with it. I am still traumatized by the public service announcement of a fake Indian on television crying over litter and pollution. Story 57. I swore I would never drink alcohol when I was 8, and I still have never had any. Turning 32 this summer. Story 58. I wanted to go vegetarian as a kid and tried, but lack of support from family and lack of knowledge on how to cook and get proper nutrition led to me developing bad anemia, and my overall health was not great. I was then forced to eat meat and did so for several years until I got older. However, I never truly forgot one scene I saw as a kid that inspired me. Years later, one day I was making a sandwich and realized I had not eaten any meat in a few days, so I decided to see how long I could go without it. That was almost a decade ago. I also stopped consuming animal products along the way. If I can rescue chickens, I will eat eggs again, but I can say with certainty that I will never eat meat or dairy again in my life. Story 59. I am 33 years old and I have never drunk alcohol, smoked, or used drugs, other than medications prescribed to me by a doctor. I stick to this every day. Story 60. Protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Story 61. No drugs. Addiction runs wildly in my family. I am glad to be where I am. Story 62. I told myself I would never try substances like marijuana, heroin, or cocaine. I grew up with a drug addict for a father. I am still not using those substances. Story 63. That I do not want children. I am 30, and everyone except my fiancé is still waiting for me to change my mind. Story 64. No Starbucks. I watch them systematically and intentionally put local coffee shops out of business. I have never had a drop of Starbucks coffee nor any of their food. If the restaurant where I am dining serves their coffee, I will not drink it. My kids think I am nuts. It is stupid and makes no difference, but there you have it. Story 65. When I was a child, I said marriage was stupid and I would never do it. Nearly 3 decades later, I am now certain that marriage is stupid and I would never do it. The system is broken and needs to be fixed. Story 66. I have not, nor will I ever, dabble in the occult, get my fortune told, play with a Ouija board, or seek out a tarot card reading. Ever. Story 67. Nothing anymore. I have been shown my own hypocrisy by God himself, and now I know that people will be proven wrong about their own self-opinions, even if they do not realize it is happening right before their very eyes. Story 68. Alcohol is poison. I took my one and only last drink when I was 25. I have seen it take over too many of my friends' lives, and I watched it slowly kill my grandfather. Story 69. Smoking. I have never tried it and never will. Drugs as well. I have also never cheated on someone and never will. Story 70. I swore off drugs and smoking as a child, and I have never broken that promise. I also avoided alcohol, but I might be willing to try wine. I have seen what these substances can do. They have both destroyed my entire family and killed my best friend a few years ago. I believe I have seen enough. Story 71. Do not lie no matter what. I still find it tough on occasion, but it is wonderful to never have that glowing, red-faced feeling when you know you are not telling the truth. Story 72. Smoking. I have hated it since I remember. I have never even had a drag from a cigarette and never will. It was a nice benchmark to measure how people around me were growing and maturing. From, you have to try at least once, and you are lame, we moved to good for you, and don't even start, it is not worth it. Story 73. Spending quality time with my parents and maintaining our relationship. My best friend's father died when we were in high school, and it had a powerful impact on me because I realized that parents are mortal. I make a point of cherishing and valuing time with my parents because I know that one day they will not be here. Story 74. I make a solid effort not to purchase clothes with the manufacturer's label on the outside. If it has your brand embroidered or plastered across the front, then I expect it to be cheaper for the free advertising I am providing. Running shoes and jeans without labels are hard to find, which is why I said solid effort. Story 75. I promised myself that money would never change me. I am not rich, but I am not poor anymore. The only real change is that I no longer worry about bills or food. Story 76. Never having children because the world is saturated, and humans are the cause of the decline of all other species due to our lack of wisdom. Story 77. No drugs. Even now, when I see my friends doing hard stuff, I simply go home. Not my thing, never will be. Story 78. I will not have children. I am 29 years old and have no children. My brother also will not have children. We are the end of the line for this side of our family. Story 79. I've never smoked a cigarette. I grew up with smokers. My dad quit in the 1980s when I was a teenager. My mom still smoked when she was on oxygen and died of emphysema and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease at 68. I also vowed never to dye my hair a natural color. Story 80. Never used cocaine, smoked crack, or injected any recreational drugs. Never have, never will. Story 81. To never make a child feel like they are annoying, unwanted, or a burden. Too many children have experienced those feelings, and I am not going to be a part of it. Story 82. I grew up in a house where pets were disposable as soon as they became any kind of inconvenience. My mom would still bring home pets constantly. I would grow attached and then wake up one day to find they were gone because they had peed in the house. I always promised myself that if I ever got pets as an adult, it would be for life no matter what. I recently had to say goodbye to my cat of almost 16 years. He required insulin injections twice a day at one point and needed an inhaler daily for his asthma. There were times when I was so broke in my 20s, I bought his special allergy food and medications, often forgoing my own groceries. I would do it all over again. A pet is family for life, no matter how tough things get, and I will never treat them as less. Story 83. Not getting ripped off. I got a bad deal on a truck. I should have done my homework and taken it slower with the buying process. Now I am kind of obsessed with getting a great deal, always looking at different angles. Sometimes it is a little annoying, but I always come out on top. Story 84. I do not swear. I am 51 years old and have kept swear words out of my speech. I have always felt it does not seem ladylike or professional. Story 85. A boyfriend hit me at 15, and I determined I would never be with a man who hit me. I am 51 years old now, and I never have. I guess that is unusual because I came from a physically abusive family, but I never became a battered woman. Story 86. Always wear a seatbelt. When I was a kid, I was very rebellious and did not wear one. My friend's mother said she did not care. Well, after one very sharp left turn, I slammed into the door and somehow managed to open it. While holding on to the door, I leaned very far out. I was able to pull myself in and was physically fine. I never argued with my mother again about seatbelts and always make sure everyone in the car is buckled before I put the car in drive. Story 87. If I change my mind about something in my cart, I return the item to the shelf or refrigerator in the store. There are so many people whose attitude is, someone gets paid to do that. No, it is your job to put things back where you found them, especially perishable items. Story 88. There would always be food in the house. I grew up hungry not because we were poor, but because my mother never considered that maybe other people would like to eat more than she did. We got a small lunch for school and one small portion of dinner each. We were chronically hungry for years. When I started my family, I vowed to always have plenty of food available. I taught my children that just because food is there, it doesn't mean they have to eat it. I encourage them to prepare healthy lunches for themselves, and I always make a healthy, plentiful dinner where everyone can have their fill and there will be leftovers. No one will ever go hungry in my house. Story 89. I swore I would never stop being kind, no matter what life threw at me, and I have not broken that promise yet. Story 90. Got miserably spinning and puking drunk at 15 years old and swore I would never do it again. That was more than 50 years ago. I get tipsy but never, ever drunk. Even at 15, I thought to myself, why would anyone purposefully give themselves a wretched case of the influenza? Story 91. Driving. I will not drive again. I cannot stand the guilt associated with global warming. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.